30 years ago today, Bosnia and Herzegovina declared its modern independence. 1 year before, Ukraine did the same. So perhaps there is no better moment than today to formally open the Center for Bosnian Studies. The scenes that we're seeing on television in Ukraine resonate profoundly. Refugees fleeing, apartment blocks shelled, the international community deciding what to do or not do. What is happening in Ukraine is current, it is now, it is fresh, just like 1992 to 1995 in Bosnia and Herzegovina. In those chaotic years, lives all over Bosnia changed by the day or even by the hour. Every life was changed. Every Bosnian has a story from the war, and that is how the Center for Bosnian Studies began. In 2006, faculty and students at Fontbonne, with the help of leaders in the Bosnian community, began documenting the stories of survivors of the atrocities and ethnic cleansing in the town of Prijedor. An extraordinarily moving exhibit followed, and momentum grew. The project organized guest lectures, film screenings, symposia, and musical performances, often in partnership with other organizations. A course on Bosnian history and the immigration to St. Louis began at Fontbonne and spread to area high schools, where students themselves conducted oral histories of Bosnian survivors. Sometimes these students are second-generation Bosnians, interviewing their own family members about their experiences in the war and migration. And for many, it's the first time that they're hearing a full account. And the collection of oral histories and related materials grew. We are grateful to the hundreds of individuals, some of whom are here this evening, who allowed us to record their personal stories and be the caretakers of belongings that form part of the collective history of the Bosnian diaspora. People in this room have made this progress possible, and we are truly grateful. The Fontbonne University administration has been supportive from the very beginning. Marcia Quint, we are so grateful to you for being an excellent advocate for the center. I could not think of a better home for the center than Taylor Library with its wonderful leadership and staff. Financial support from the Fontbonne Community Connection, the National Endowment for the Humanities, and countless individual donors, many of you, has helped us to expand our collections, outreach, and capacity for preservation. Thank you for your partnership. The support of Midwest Bank Center was the catalyst that transformed the Bosnia Memory Project into the Center for Bosnian Studies. And I will talk about that more when I introduce Marcia Benny from Midwest Bank Center later in the program. I've told you how we got here, and now let me tell you a little about the center's future. The collection of oral histories of survivors and their families remains our core work. We want to increase the collection significantly. On one side, there's the reality of an aging diaspora population. We may never get the chance to save some of these stories. On the other side, we have seen increased demand for use of the oral histories for academic research. Even in the midst of the pandemic, researchers came to St. Louis to access our archives, and new requests for use come in regularly. To grow the collection of oral histories, we need to expand partnerships with organizations in the United States and beyond, so that we can record oral histories in other Bosnian diaspora communities. This will broaden the center's reach and national profile. We also need to upgrade the usability of the oral histories. We are currently indexing, de-identifying, and uploading to a digital repository all of the existing histories, which will improve searchability and enable easy access by researchers anywhere in the world. This work takes time, capacity, and language skills. We want to diversify and grow the physical materials in the center's archives. And I look forward to working with our Bosnian community to identify and preserve documents and other artifacts that they have kept from the war and their migration to St. Louis that can enrich the historical archive. We are in the process of digitizing materials from the collection, including a unique run of a Bosnian American newspaper that we rescued from the publisher's garage. Our digital collections have been downloaded more than 5,000 times by users around the world already. And we want to continue raising awareness about the Bosnian community in St. Louis and beyond by collaborating with long-standing partners such as the Missouri History Museum to draw lessons from the Bosnian experience about the importance of countering the narratives of hate and discrimination in order to prevent conflict and genocide. We have a committed team to do this, as well as generous volunteers who give their time to the center. The work before us can be overwhelming and sometimes emotional, but I think anyone who has been involved will surely agree that it's also incredibly inspiring and fulfilling. For me, the guidance, steady hand, and friendship of Dr. Ben Moore has been critical. And let me just say a few words here about Ben as he prepares to take the stage to make some remarks. I mentioned earlier that the progress of the Bosnia Memory Project and now the center is the work of many people. However, I think everyone in this room knows that Ben Moore has been the heart and soul of this initiative. The center was his vision and he saw it through. He was able to do that by making his name and face a familiar one among local Bosnians, with whom he has shared coffee, meals, stories, and tears in his characteristic humble and unassuming manner. Ben isn't going anywhere, but the center will be honoring him by founding a book award in his honor to recognize books that advance scholarship on Bosnia, displacement, migration, and broadly the issues of tolerance and diversity that underpin the center's work. Ben, I have the utmost respect for you and what you have created, as a Bosnian, of course, but also just as a fellow human being watching how you've devoted yourself to something because you genuinely care about others. I learn so much from you every day, and thank you for all you have done for the Bosnian community. Now, please join me in welcoming Ben to the stage.
Thank you so much, Adna, and thanks to all of you, because so many of you in this room are such an important part of this endeavor. And I couldn't name how many people within this community, both here and people who couldn't make it, have taught me. I couldn't name how many people have taught me so much about so many things over the past decade and more, not only about Bosnia and about being Bosnian, but about being human. And for this, I'm deeply grateful. And I want to acknowledge the superb work of Dr. Adna Karyamejovs and Rebecca Van Niest. Adna is, of course, our director, and Rebecca is, I mentally have called her our genius in residence. She's our archiver, and she has just done so much for the center. They, more than anyone, have transformed the Bosnian Memory Project into a fully fledged Center for Bosnian Studies. And congratulations are also to go to Dr. Karyamejovs, whose co-edited book entitled Bosnian Studies, A Reader, was recently accepted for publication by the University of Missouri Press, and reviewers are already calling it a seminal work in the field of Bosnian studies. And let me also draw your attention to the work of the center that you can't see today. The oral histories, of course, and the Bosnian language newspapers that we are slowly digitizing and making available on our website. The classes about Bosnia that Brian Jennings, Emily Klein, and Monica Hasabasic are teaching at Afton and Bayless high schools. And most important, the relationships that we have built over the years, relationships that reach across ethnicities and generations and that remind us daily of the power of listening. On November 1st, 2006, with the help of Patrick McCarthy, Ron Klutho, and Amir Karadzic, students at Fontbonne University, under the supervision of Dr. Jack Lutzkow, recorded an interview of a man named Reshad Kulenovic, who was born in 1938 in the town of Kozarac in northwestern Bosnia and Herzegovina. His was the first oral history that we recorded. In 1992, Reshad had been imprisoned in the death camp of Marska, and he told us of many things, atrocities, that should never be visited upon any human being. But what moved us most about Reshad was his kindness. The kindness not only of telling his story, but also of telling it without hatred or vengefulness. Instead, he simply wanted us to know what happened and to record it in a way that honored the memory of the dead and the human potential of the living. Reshad died on May 26, 2014. To this day, the most complete account of his remarkable story remains that recording. It's an apt and important reminder of the fragility of life and memory, and it continues to motivate the work that we undertake at the Center for Bosnian Studies. So do the words of many other survivors. I'll quote from the oral history given by Akif Sogo, a leader in our Bosnian community. When asked to give a message to people who would be listening to his interview a century from now, Akif said, after some thought, quote, "Review what we left behind. Review why we came here in the first place. Cherish Bosnian culture. Keep it going as long as you are able to, and love everyone." Love everyone. We find versions of this hope in many of our oral histories. One man of Christian Orthodox background from Sarajevo recalled, quote, "I was always proud because I had so many friends. I didn't know who was what nationality, what religion. I was 3 times best man. One time the guy was Serbian, another guy was Croatian, the third guy was Muslim." A young Bosnian woman of Catholic background stated, "You want to remember what happened, but you should never hold on to that hate. You can't judge someone based on where they came from, what their last name is. Ethnicity, race, religion, that doesn't make you who you are. It's what you do. It's your actions. It's how you feel and think about people. That's what makes you who you are." A woman of Muslim background who was a teenager during the siege of Sarajevo recalled that, quote, "It was a Serb who shot my father and another Serb who then saved my father's life." And a young man of Muslim background who lost family in the genocide in Srebrenica expressed his desire to, quote, "take these experiences that we have had and better the world." Tonight, Ukraine is ravaged by a war of unprovoked aggression. In Myanmar, Rohingya face gradual but persistent extermination. In Bosnia, Republika Srpska deploys official policies of denial while threatening once again to secede. Our own country remains rife with systemic racism, economic inequalities, and political discord. It is therefore all the more important to remember that the division that will shape our future will not be and should not be the division between East and West, between Muslim and Christian, or between nations or races. Instead, the division that will matter most will be between those who promote hatred, bigotry, and violence, and those who oppose them. Today, we stand firmly with those who oppose hatred, bigotry, and violence. Nor is there any contradiction between pursuing justice for victims and seeking a more harmonious society for the future. To the contrary, people like Pope John Paul II and Nelson Mandela have averred that justice predicated on truth is a necessary condition for peace. With respect to Bosnia, activist Refik Hodzic said when he visited Fontbonne in 2012, quote, "At the back of everybody's mind there are facts. There are realities, no matter how hard the system tries to bury them. They're there. And this is where I think memory should come in, to bring us to the questions where we can sit down and talk to each other, where you basically say, what happened? What happened to us? End quote. And so on this 30th anniversary of Bosnian independence, we renew our commitment to understanding and preserving the history of Bosnia and Herzegovina, a place where people of several ethnicities and religions once lived peacefully side by side before a rising tide of ethno-nationalism in the 1990s disrupted what was known as the common life. We renew our commitment to remembering the 100,000 who were killed and the millions more who were forcibly displaced by war and ethnic cleansing. We renew our commitment to listening respectfully and compassionately to the survivors and their children and their grandchildren. Above all, we renew our commitment to the welfare of a younger generation of Bosnian Americans, many of whom have no memory of the homeland, but who live out daily the legacy of forced displacement and the complicated questions of identity that arise from it. Even as we all face a future fraught with divisions and uncertainties, let us seek peace founded on justice and an honest appreciation of our commonalities and differences. Zato što volimo Bosnu, I volimo Bosance, I volimo ljudi koji vole Bosance. Our next speaker is a true friend of the Center of Bosnian Studies. Nedim Ramic has earned a position as an effective leader in the Bosnian community in St. Louis and beyond, and he is well known among Bosnians here and in Bosnia and Herzegovina for his generosity and compassion. And I might add that Mr. Ramic was not asked to speak until this morning after we had made a last-minute change to the program, so we thank him doubly for speaking tonight. He was born in Janja, Bosnia and Herzegovina, in 1982, and he fled with his family to Germany when the war started in 1992. After spending his teenage years as a refugee in Germany, he immigrated to St. Louis in 1999. Here he completed a law degree at St. Louis University and then co-founded Byrich and Ramic LLC, a law firm dedicated to serving Bosnians and others in St. Louis. In the oral history that he gave in 2016 for the Bosnia Memory Project, Mr. Ramic expressed both the need to remember and the hope for peace. In this spirit, would you please join me in welcoming Mr. Nedim Ramic.
My story is a story of any other Bosnian American refugee in the United States here in St. Louis. So, as I said, born in Bosnia in 1982. I was almost 10 years old when the war broke out in April of '92. Most of you being from St. Louis, I guess, may have read the story of Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. Well, that's kind of how my life was before the war broke out. You know, just a carefree existence, you know, just roaming the Drina Valley, swimming, fishing, playing with friends. Unfortunately, the war started in April of '92, and as soon as it started, Serbian forces came looking for my dad, as he was a 4-star reserve officer in the Yugoslavian army. So he was forced to hide, and we actually were forced to flee. We fled in December of '92. So we stayed for another, 6-8 months. In '92, we arrived in Germany. As a 10-year-old, it was difficult, getting used to new surroundings. We stayed in Germany until '99. So I spent my teenage years in Germany as a refugee, and once the war ended, Germany wanted to send us back, not really asking if we could go back, to a home. At that time, an actual war criminal was living in our house, actually the first guy that, you know, pled guilty at the International Criminal Tribunal. Dražen Edemović was in our house. So in '99, through I think Bill Clinton had the program going on for Bosnian refugees, we arrived in St. Louis, and as a 17-year-old teenager, I knew the United States through Hollywood, through movies, through shows. So one of those shows was Baywatch. And so we landed in St. Louis, but Pamela Anderson wasn't there. So that's unexpected. But my family and I, we really believed in hard work and education. So right away I started working at Schnucks, stacking bananas and apples and all that good stuff. But I also went to Forest Park Community College, 2 years there, 2 years at UMSL, and then 3 years at SLU Law. I also met my wife here, Amela. She was 5 years old and lived in Bratunec when the war started. They spent a couple of years in Srebrenica, and then they came to Vermont, moved to St. Louis in '06. She saw me, fell madly in love, or at least I'd like to think that. And we have a 5-year-old son named Faris, and he's probably causing havoc at home right now. But, most of our American friends here in this room, I think we all have sons, young daughters, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers. Take a moment. Think of them. All the loved ones that you're surrounded with. And now imagine they're all dead. Unfortunately, that is the reality of many Bosnian Americans around here. Unfortunately, a lot of them were slaughtered because of their religion, because of their ethnic background, because of who they were. They were thrown into mass graves in Bosnia, amongst so many others, maybe never to be found again. That's the reality. And that's where the importance of preserving history and the Center for Bosnian Study comes in. It's been said before that, those who forget their history are doomed to repeat it, right? Even as we speak, there are many forces denying genocide in Bosnia. They're sponsoring the so-called experts to fabricate lies that genocide never happened. I guess money is a powerful thing, right?
I would like to take a moment to recognize the continued efforts of our 13 Midwest Bank Center team members of Bosnian origin, who have worked together to strengthen our engagements with the Bosnian community. And if you're here, will you please raise your hand so we know who you are? Many of these team members have been instrumental in enabling business successes, and many of these team members have been with Midwest Bank Center for more than 20 years. In addition, I'd like to take a moment to thank Ibrahim Vajovic and recognize Ibrahim Vajovic. And I don't know if Ibrahim's here with us this evening. Ibrahim is one of our board of directors, and he's helped, through his actions, bring the needs of our growing multicultural communities throughout the St. Louis region to help our teams serve them. So thank you, Ibrahim, and thank you to our loyal Bosnian team members. Your dedication helps us better serve our entire St. Louis community. Thank you. So as today marks the 30th anniversary of Bosnian independence, I invite you to consider the words of President Kennedy as he addressed American University graduates in 1963. President Kennedy reminds us, genuine peace must be the product of many nations, a sum of many acts. It must be dynamic, not static, changing to meet the challenges of each new generation. For peace is a process, a way of solving problems. Amen. Rings true today, doesn't it? At Midwest Bank Center, we remain committed to the process of solving problems across our St. Louis region, and we do not shy away from the glaring economic inequities and resulting tensions in the metropolitan area. We face them directly, and we work to improve outcomes for multicultural communities and for divested communities as well. Our Bosnian colleagues and partners have been an integral part of this effort, and we've been seeing the results of their work benefiting both Bosnian community and other multicultural communities as well. Like Midwest Bank Center, the Center for Bosnian Studies acknowledges the realities of our time and strives to empower dynamic and diverse St. Louis communities. And now I'd like to invite back to the stage Dr. Moore and Dr. Kara Mehic-Oakes. Dr. Moore, thank you for your work in serving the Bosnian community. And thank you for bringing the Bosnian Memory Project, now the Center for Bosnian Studies, to fruition. The screen here. Dr. Kara Mehic-Oakes, thank you for serving as the current director of the Center for Bosnian Studies. The work you are doing is not only preserving history, but it's also enabling the next generation of greatness. So thank you. And now on behalf of Midwest Bank Center, I have the privilege to present this plaque to the Center of Bosnian Studies to celebrate and honor our relationship.
Thank you, Marcia. It really has been a pleasure to work with Midwest Bank Center over the years, and it's been a true and genuine partnership, and we look forward to deepening that collaboration. So now, with gratitude as a member of the Fontbonne community and as a member of the Bosnian community, we want to celebrate our partnership with Midwest Bank Center and declare that today, March 1st, 2022, the 30th anniversary of the independence of Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have the official opening of the Center for Bosnian Studies, and it is now open.